Welcome to a short little biology podcast on symbiosis, the relationship that two organisms share with one another. Today's podcast will focus on mutualism, parasitism, commensalism, competition, predation, and neutralism. This is the relationship that organisms have when they live in close proximity to one another. The first example is mutualism. In a mutualistic relationship, both organisms are happy in the relationship. They benefit from each other. They need each other in order to survive. So a common example is in lichens. Lichens are a fungus that lives with an algae. They rely upon each other because what will happen is the algae is able to produce food by photosynthesis, and then the fungus will absorb the nutrients that are produced by the algae. So they rely on each other in order to survive. Another common example would be any type of pollinator and a flower. So in order for flowers to reproduce, they need to have a pollinator. The pollinator gets food, comes in, eats some of that great tasting nectar, and as a result, when it comes in here, it will accidentally get some pollen attached to its abdomen. It will fly away to another flower and in the process transfer the pollen to this plant, allowing the plant to have sex, and the bees all happy because it just got a sweet taste of nectar. So that's again a mutualistic relationship where both organisms rely upon each other. Another common example is found in legumes. Legumes are plants that have tiny little nodules on their roots, and living in these little nodules are bacteria. So the bacteria all by themselves cannot independently fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. They require a plant host. So the plant gets lots of nitrogen in return, and the bacteria get a nice home to live. The Nile crocodile is a tremendous predator. The teeth are designed for killing. However, the Egyptian plover is able to eat leeches out of the mouth of this crocodile without being killed. Why is that beneficial? Because the Nile crocodile can be preyed upon by these leeches as a parasite, and it realizes the benefits of getting rid of those leeches, so it allows the Egyptian plover to go in and pick at those little leeches that are attached to the gums of that croc. The clownfish and the sea anemone are another prime example of mutualistic relationships. The clownfish is able to clean the anemone, so it gets a little food, and the anemone basically provides a place for the clownfish to hide. So these blue tentacles on the anemone are very parasitic and poisonous to many other types of fish. However, the clownfish has developed a skin that is not sensitive to the stinging of the anemone. So they're able to live in a harmonious relationship together where they both benefit from each other. Another type of symbiotic relationship is called parasitism. In a parasitic relationship, one organism is happy because it gets something, and the other one is harmed as a result of it. So one benefits and one is harmed. Here's a classic example of the infamous lamprey eel. These things live in the Great Lakes, and they can often prey upon lake trout. And so the idea here is that this lamprey will attach, leave scars behind, like you can see in this picture. These scars can cause infection and ultimately death in this fish. So this is an example of parasitism. Again, parasitism can happen in so many examples. Here's a short little video clip to show you the parasites that live on you.
The average human being might have more than 1 million parasites crawling around on or in his or her body. For them, our skin is like the great open plains and our hair is like a lush forest. You might think that nothing could survive here, but look closer at the root of this hair. Several mites have taken up residence. These are follicle mites. They feed off the nutrient-rich cells here. Most of us have them, mainly on the forehead, the corners of the nose, and the eyelashes. If a follicle gets too crowded, a mite can crawl out in search of a new hair on our face, or someone else's. Our Our bodies are also a breeding ground for more than 55 kinds of parasitic fungi. Inside this gym shoe, it's a warm, humid environment. Fungus heaven. Right now, at least a third of us are carrying the fungus that causes athlete's foot.
I'm starting to
And
itch
sooner
right now.
or later, it will affect nearly all of us. You know, it's disconcerting even for a scientist like me to think about these parasites roaming all over my body. Maybe that's why we spend so much time cleaning and grooming ourselves. You know, to keep the parasites off our backs.
They're all around us, kids. So some other examples of parasitic organisms are viruses. They can draw nourishment at your expense. Liver flukes are common parasites in third world countries that people can get from drinking pure water or unpure water. Tapeworms can be ingested from foods that people consume. Dogs and cats often have tapeworms if they aren't given preventative medicine. Athlete's foot, as mentioned in the little video, is an example of a parasite. Trypanosoma, the disease that causes malaria that's carried by mosquitoes, is an example of a parasite. The list can go on and on. There are hundreds of different bacteria that are parasitic to people and to other organisms. So the facial mites that we all have that feast on our dead skin cells, those are all good examples of parasitic organisms. Another type of symbiotic relationship is called commensalism. And in a commensalistic relationship, one organism benefits and the other is not affected at all. So in a commensalistic relationship, one organism benefits while the other is not affected. Some examples of commensalism include different ciliates, which are protists that live in the guts of some herbivores, so they can feed upon the nutrients that the rabbit consumes possibly and not affects that organism. There are different types of bacteria that thrive in our colon. These things really don't harm us at all. They just get what's left over as it passes through our small intestines, through our large intestines, and then collects in our colon. You know, these bacteria get a good food, and the only thing that they do for us is provide a little gas. Another example is the hummingbird. Sometimes these things have to migrate thousands of miles in the winter so they don't freeze to death. So they're often said to have that they're able to hitchhike rides on large migratory birds like a goose or some type of duck. The remoras, they can attach and catch rides on sharks. The sharks are really not affected by this. The remoras just get a free ride. So as they are traveling along, the shark might eat something and kill it, and they're kind of sloppy eaters, so these guys get whatever's left over. So again, no harm to the sharks, and the remoras just get a little extra food. So we can look at competition as a symbiotic relationship, two organisms that live in the same environment and they compete against each other. And again, this is the type of relationship where really there's no winner or loser overall. However, case by case, you might see one example of an organism that benefits and the other is harmed as a result. It's not necessarily going to lead to death, but they're competing for the same two resources. So interspecific is referring to the relationship between two or more species for the same resource. So here's a little video on interspecific competition.
Intently watching the buffalo, or moving right over there.
Again, two different species competing for the water buffalo. Watch for the attack.
This could be very interesting.
What's going to compete against the lion for this water buffalo?
That is a huge buffalo.
That's a huge buffalo.
It's a huge buffalo.
These lions will run up on us.
Even the lion.
Yeah, they're too young. The one's gone already.
Don't you think there's a little? They
I don't know.
might be
They're a bit
Ants
young. I
get
don't know.
ready for the stalk. It's going to be easy pickings.
They're
for them.
crouching.
She's quite big.
Does that mean attack position?
Yeah, it's a tough position.
Stay low, conserve your energy, and wait for the right moment.
This is they're running away. The bull's gonna.
Uh-oh. What's the bull gonna do?
Suspense.
Oh my god.
Can we grab the baby?
Oh my god.
I'll grab the baby.
She's
Watch.
going for him. She's going for him. She got him. Oh, she did. She got him.
Hey, these Gondies just clocked a buffalo here.
Oh my god.
Got the
God, did you see that?
Oh my god.
slow in the week.
Unbelievable.
Get preyed upon.
It's always gonna feel it.
That's going to be a good meal for that family.
Oh, guys, I'm shaking. Can you believe this? Yeah, the buffalo are coming to help this one now. Watch.
They're too
They'll
late.
come and help this baby. Watch.
They're too late. Can they help him now, Frank?
Yeah, they can.
He's still alive, you think?
Oh, he's still alive.
My goodness.
Russell for Frank.
I hope they kill it quickly.
Oh, it's still alive.
Ja, positief. Want
There's
het
the
een klein
competition.
buffeltjie gevangen hier zo.
It's in the water.
There's a crocodile there too.
Ja, dat is een krokodil ook. Daar gaat een krokodil ook, die kleintje.
The
Yes.
crocodile crocodile. Coming out food fight.
Check through the banners. The croc's trying to grab the baby.
Yes.
Two different species competing for the same resource.
Look at this. The crocodile's taking that baby away.
Oh my god. They're two crocodiles.
They're gonna lose it.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
they're gonna fight over it.
Jeez, I'm shaking.
Oh my god.
Oh, he's coming back.
Huge crocodile. Three.
Oh, look at those dogs.
The lions have won.
The lions have won.
Oh, the lions have won.
Yeah, but look at all those buffalo coming.
I'm running out of film.
The other type of competition is intraspecific. Intra means it's between the same species within that population. So for instance, trees compete with each other for sunlight. So they're the same similar species and they're competing for the same resource. Another example of intraspecific competition are two deer that live in the same environment. They compete against each other for space and for a mate. The last type of relationship that exists between two species is described as neutralism, and it's basically where two species do not affect each other. So they can live in the same type of environment, but really don't impact each other in a positive or negative way. So there's many different examples of neutralism in many different ecosystems. And then the last type of relationship is called predation. Predation is obviously where there's a predator and a prey in the relationship, and the predator is the organism doing the capturing, and the prey is the organism that's being captured. So a predator's survival depends on its ability to catch its prey. So for instance, rattlesnakes' venom, the spider's web are abilities for them that they can use to catch their prey. A prey's survival depends on its ability to avoid being caught. So different adaptations that organisms have include camouflage and mimicry, and then physical or chemical defenses that might deter something from eating them. So predation is the other type of symbiotic relationships that you should be aware of. So thank you for watching this podcast, and we are done.